Here we're going to tie a fly called the Sulphur parachute. This is also a PMD parachute. Sulphur is just a little bit larger. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take a cream colored hackle and we're going to rip off some of the fibers here for our tail. We're going to rip off a generous clump of about a dozen or so. We want those tails to be about the length of the shank of the hook, so I just kind of roughly measure that out, lay it on the hook, tie it in on top of the shank of the hook, take it all the way back to the bend. I'll kind of just clean everything up here. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to tie in the parachute, which is going to be a very light done piece of turkey flat. And you can see the tips on the turkey flat are all even, so I keep those tips nice and even, and I pinch those tips with my fingers and I cut off a generous amount of turkey flats. I would say probably 20 to 30 fibers. We want this to be about 3/4 the length of the shank of the hook, so just measure those out, tie them in. I can trim out the excess at the back. Get rid of all the extra fibers. And I tied this in about 1/3 of the way back from the shank, or from the eye of the hook, about 2/3 of the way up from the rear of the fly. I'm going to pull these turkey flats straight up. I'm going to take my thread, I'm going to wrap around these turkey flats. What that's going to do is it's going to give me something to wrap my hackle around at the end. I just kind of draw that thread up just a little bit. There we are. Now we're going to take a cream hackle. We're going to measure it out. We want those fibers to just touch the back of the hook. We're going to tie these in right in front of the turkey. Trim off the stem. I'm going to take that feather, I'm going to wrap it, take my thread and wrap that feather around the post of the turkey flat. Take my thread back down, back to the tail. Now I'm ready to dub the body. Just going to use some yellow sulfur or PMD colored dubbing, superfine dubbing, good nice fine dry fly dubbing. I'm just going to dub a nice tight but slender body on the fly. Got to be careful not to overdo it and make your body too bulky. I'm going to take my dubbing, I'm going to go all the way up to the head as well. I'm going to put a little bit of dubbing on here to finish off the fly at the head. I'm going to wrap it back to the parachute post. Once I get to the post, I'm actually going to take my fly, I'm going to invert the fly. I'm just going to let my thread hang off of the post. Now the next step is to take that hackle, We're just going to wrap it around the post. Hardest part is just getting that first wrap started. Once you get the first wrap started, you crawl down the post with the hackle to the body of the fly. Usually only takes a few wraps. What I'm trying to do here is draw some of the fibers up, get my last wrap in. There we go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my thread, I'm going to work it underneath all those fibers by just rocking the bobbin back and forth here. Then I can trim out the excess in the stem. Now all I have to do is just whip finish around all these fibers, and I do that also by rocking the whip finish around all those fibers. Now you're always going to trap a few fibers, not a big deal. Just get in there and you can trim them. I'll stick the fly back up here. I'll get in there and just trim some of the trapped fibers that are sticking down. That's all there is to a sulfur parachute, or a PMD parachute. Very effective, fairly easy fly to tie as well.